I'm from business and industry, and having worked in sales and marketing and innovation and design management for decades, both nationally and internationally. Inclusive design is much more than just a design practice. And it's a very effective approach for inclusion, for a more inclusive and sustainable society. But it's also low cost and low tech, and everyone can do it. And it can drive creativity. It's clear it's a win-win-win. It benefits society, business, and the individual. And it's applicable to all sectors and all design fields. It's a no-brainer. Thank you so much, and dear all, and good morning. I really hope you had your shots of coffee. I did, and I really needed it, because I'm talking this morning, but I'm not a morning person, as my neighbor here. So anyway, thank you all for inviting me to this Creative Morning session. And it's a truly honor for me to be here. And I think it is an important event on this global stage on creativity. And a little bit about my background. I'm from business and industry, and having worked in sales and marketing and innovation and design management for decades, both nationally and internationally. Then I joined the Norwegian Design Council 13 years ago, now Design and Architecture Norway, to establish an Innovation for All program, focusing on inclusive design as a strategy for innovation to business and public sector, as well as to the design communities and to architecture communities. Now I work independently, and I'm also the president of Design for All Europe. I'm going to talk about inclusive design because this theme today is inclusive. So what is inclusive design? Well, inclusive design is also known as universal design or design for all, and is often defined as the design of products, services, and environments in such a way that they can be used by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need of adaptation or specialized design, so mainstream design. However, it is much more than that. It is also a mindset, a philosophy, and a strategy as well as a design practice. Still much overlooked, though, is the fact that it is also a very powerful tool for innovation in both private and public sector, as well as a leadership approach for creatives, like yourself, I believe. Design for human diversity will help you innovate. And what is human diversity? Well, here you can see some examples, but the list is not comprehensive. We can just add on. Like Bernard Isaac, founding director of the Center for Applied Gerontology, puts it nicely. He said, design for the young and you exclude the old, but design for the old and you include the young. So this is what I preach. Stairs can be a barrier for many people, but an elevator is good for everybody. And we also need to celebrate human diversity that we see around us. I see inclusive design as a sustainable strategy that benefits society, business, and the individual citizen. But having worked with inclusive design for such a long time, I discovered that we need to bust a lot of the myths and misconceptions about inclusive design. That it is expensive, not concerned with aesthetics, only about public services and solutions, only for specialized needs, about assistive technology, and last but not least, especially in Norway maybe, about legislation and standards. Having busting these myths, I'm pleased to see that the efforts have paid off in many areas, both in Norway and globally. It has become more mainstream. However, there is still a lot to do, I think, to change this mindset, and also among decision makers in policy, and more importantly, in the implementation. Designers and architects sometimes claim that it can restrict their creativity, but I beg to differ. It can actually drive their creativity. So, people are at the center of this approach. So that means human diversity, as we've already seen in this warm-up today. If we look at numbers, did you know that 20% of Europeans have some form of disability? In the Nordic region, this amounts to 2.5 million and 15 million people in Europe. And globally, over 1 billion people, about 50% of the world's population, have some form of disability, according to World Health Organization. And also, did you know that 70% of all disabilities are invisible? I have several. How can you tell? So Norway now is a multicultural and also aging society, and diversity is important and on the political agenda. So how can inclusive design be a strategy for innovation? I will talk a little bit about that. And a lot of the following content is taken from the books I did, Innovating with People, The Business of Inclusive Design, and the most recent one, an updated version just launched called Inclusive Design in Architecture. Design thinking and doing has become more mainstream the last decade, being integrated into business strategies at top level. It is a lasting trend to talk about human-centered design and also the importance of focusing on the user. But what does that really mean? Who are these humans or users? I will look into this and make some suggestions. But before I go into exploring that question, let's get an overview. This is one simple way to present the idea that the innovation potential is where the interests of people, planet, and business overlap. Designers, architects, as well as government and business people need to define this area to reach viable and sustainable solutions. In the following, I will focus more on the social and commercial interests. First, I will do a little exercise. Please, everyone, raise your hand. Take it down if we wear contact lenses or glasses. Oh, well, then take it down if you're female. Oh, can you please take it down if you're left-handed? Can you take it down if you're dyslexic? And can you take it down if you have any form of allergy? Oh, how many do we have? Well, so there's not many left in the average consumer segment. So this is what we preach. Who are we talking to? Who are the clients? At the core of this approach is, of course, customers and clients, people. And this is our message to business. Do not just design for mainstream, able-bodied people. The world is actually made mostly up of people outside that description, and the average consumer doesn't exist. So it's much more challenging and rewarding also to design to real people who will challenge and inspire designers and realize the true innovation potential. So aim for the edges and you include many more people. Actually, we are only tabs if we are lucky. That means temporarily able-bodied throughout our lives. So, lead users are central to the inclusive design approach. This illustration makes it easy to explain why and how the diversity is key when picking lead users tailor-made to the actual project you have. Each one of these persons can bring valuable insights to the table. You might be an expert at what you do, but people are experts in their own life. So, why are lead users a tool for design-driven innovation then? Well, It's because they challenge the performance of the products and use them in different and more extreme ways than the mainstream and able-bodied strong man in the bull's eye we just saw. They demand more of the products and services and indicate barriers and issues and problems. So these highlighted problems can be a rich source for innovation. Insights about real people's behavior, needs, aspirations, and emotions can inspire and give new perspectives that's valuable to any type of design or development process. So, people of all ages and all differences can give rich information to designers and architects. Here we see one important lead user from a packaging project we did, and her insights influenced the final solution. So, design-led user research, a field that I think is still evolving, is an important competence that requires a skill set that is still undervalued and not fully explored. To be truly people-centered, a commitment to conducting qualitative research involving a diversity of people by applying a combination of tools, methods, and research techniques appropriate for the task or issue at stake. So to get started with such an approach and build competence, the book I mentioned introduces some well-tested tools and techniques for easy take-up in daily practice, no matter field or sector. And you know, this is applicable to all kinds and fields of development. So have a look. For the business and also public sector, number-centered research is always important. But people-centered research can add value and complement it, and both are equally important. Qualitative research needs few people, few subjects, and provide little statistical truth, but can give rich insights and inspiration that can drive creativity. So on the left hand, you will have a lot of statistics, but on the right-hand side here, you have truth about people's lives. An example we saw here today also that can really inspire you. But how to involve people in practice? Here I have given a visual description of a people-centered design process. It's a simplified 4-stage model at the bottom of the screen, and with just 8 inclusive design activities that can be added to any process to make it more people-centered throughout the process. And these range from understanding context and doing research at the early beginning, to discovering needs, map insights, translate them into concepts, and to also include resource building. And one important remark here, people in this context can mean many things. It can mean end user, customer, client, employer, employee, or stakeholder, and so on. These are 9 key methods that we introduced for conducting research with people, but there are many more. Some techniques are borrowed from marketing, ethnography, and anthropology, and they are divided into 3 sections, each describing a different level of engagement with users, as well as the resources required to conduct them. So we call them low contact, medium contact, and high contact, also describing the level of resources and time required. Remember, each project is different, so make sure that you design your research for the issue at task and also to pick the right lead users. So these simple tools range from questionnaires to interviews to focus groups, workshops, research kits, design provocations, and to observations, shadowed and controlled, these sorts of techniques. But we made it simple for you here. In the last book, in the books we describe each tool and how they work, and strengths and weaknesses, and how they can be combined. In addition, we also defined some tools that are useful for urban design and architecture. What is very close to my heart is how inclusive design represents a business opportunity. And I will talk a little bit about that. I think this message is important. Inclusive design is a very effective way to discover problems and barriers to solve. And we know that there are lots of innovation potential in conducting people-centered design research. This is OXO Good Grips, who innovated this measure cup by observing people in action in the kitchen. Nobody said they had any problems, but this is the winner. Just listen to what the CEO, Alex Lee, says. Our philosophy has not only resulted in user-friendly products for a wider user group, it has also provided to be a profitable business model. We have achieved annual growth of 30% since 1991 and have won more than 100 international design awards. And probably these figures should be updated now because this is some years ago. The Norwegian chair Stokke Tripp Trapp might be familiar to some of you and is an old but still valid example showing what the insight from only one user can mean for the designer to come up with a brilliant idea. His son was his inspiration. This is a chair that grows with a child. On the top you can see the designer's first sketches. And I have to tell you the name. The name is Petter Opsvik, and this chair has been a success for more than 30 years worldwide. In Norway in 2011, I was responsible for establishing the Innovation Award for Universal Design on behalf of the Ministry of Children, Equality and Social Inclusion. The winners are lighthouse projects that have succeeded with an inclusive and people-centered design approach, and the results are outstanding and truly innovative. Some of the 21 winners presented on the screen here range from St. Olavs Hospital in Trondheim, a university college, a government website, and a Bergen light rail, to just mention a few. These all communicate and demonstrate the value of inclusive design strategy in practice. So the winner in 2014 was the St. Olavs Hospital. And it's an amazing project, a 15-year complex urban project comprising all design and architecture discipline. The user group coordinator said, "Inclusive design is necessary for some, but better for all of us." Some key aspects of the process at St. Olavs that we all can learn from. They had user groups involved from the very start. They had an inclusive design requirement from the beginning, and it was the patient in focus. Design guidelines were basis for all decisions at all levels. They ensured cross-disciplinary teams cooperated through all stages. And they used evidence-based design. And also neurophenomenology, how focus on emotions, empathy, and perceptions are impacted by the environments and how they impact our emotions and our senses. The interesting thing is that the price for this hospital was the same as the average hospital price, but the results so much better. So design can really improve life. I want to show you another award winner, Vision of the Fjords, an amazing innovative boat design. And it's sustainable and inclusive. This is both sustainable, it's aesthetic, and it is also can go into the UNESCO protected Nærøyfjorden on the west coast of Norway in total silence, where you can really enjoy nature and it's accessible for all. You have a rail along the boat side that everyone can access. So this has been awarded Boat of the Year in 2016, and it's innovative and it's given the boat builder a competitive edge, and they are a pioneer in their field now. So a good example of how it also is good for business. I've learned a lot from all these amazing award winners along the years, and I have looked at some of the common success criteria that they all share. And these are some important features you can be inspired and copy from. So, what they all have, they start with a vision and a clear set of goals. And they involve a diversity of people in the whole process from the early beginning. They develop guidelines and principles that are easy to understand and follow. And also, they have universal or inclusive design requirements as a contractual requirement in the contracts for all suppliers. And also, very important, interdisciplinary collaboration and a good collaboration throughout the process. I think communication is key when we talk about inclusive design, no matter what. I have some conclusions. I could talk for hours, but okay, I'll try to be short. I think it's very clear that inclusive design is much more than just a design practice. And it's a very effective approach for inclusion, for a more inclusive and sustainable society. But it's also low cost and low tech, and everyone can do it. And it can drive creativity. It's clear it's a win-win-win. It benefits society, business, and the individual. And it's applicable to all sectors and all design fields. It's a no-brainer. Thank you for listening. These are my details.